What you are witnessing here is a unique and innovative approach to dealing with a serious pollution problem. A positive example of how government and private industry can work together to clean up contaminated waters. Hello, I'm Paul Saltman, Professor of Biology at the University of California, San Diego. Before we take a closer look at the innovative technology at work here, it may be well to give you some background information. An area of San Diego Bay has been contaminated with a large amount of copper ore. How that copper got here in the first place and how it is being cleaned up is what this story is all about. It began in the late 1970s. Raw copper ore mined in Arizona was routinely shipped by rail to a loading dock in National City, about 5 miles south of downtown San Diego. Mounds of copper were piled dockside for easy loading onto the cargo freighters for shipment overseas. While the ore was being transferred from the dock to the ship, small amounts would invariably spill into the waters nearest the pier. As you might imagine, several years of this kind of loading activity resulted in a substantial buildup of copper in this part of the bay. So, you might ask, what's the big deal? Copper is certainly not a toxic substance. We deal with it and handle it every day. We cook our food in copper utensils. We make our coins out of copper. We deliver water to our homes in copper pipes. Why be concerned about it? Well, as a biochemist, I can tell you that large concentrations of copper ore over a long period of time can wreak havoc in the marine environment. Listen to what my colleague Brad Thibault, marine biologist at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, has to say about it.
Aquatic organisms are much more sensitive to copper than are mammals. There's both lethal and sublethal effects, and furthermore, animals can accumulate copper, and it can therefore be accumulated through the food chain. And that, of course, interferes with our food resources as well as interfering with our recreational activities.
So there it is. Copper in seawater is bad news. Maybe not so much for these characters in the aquarium who swim behind me, for fish in the bay could easily swim away and not be hurt. But for the shellfish that live on the bottom, the copper was very hazardous. It comes as no surprise then that local agencies, various environmental groups, the state government was very anxious to get the copper out of San Diego Bay, and they wanted the copper out now.
The copper problem, which we find at the Paco terminal site, was the regional board started working on that in probably the early to mid 1980s, and the issue became a cleanup issue, that somebody had to take the responsibility to move the copper out of the bay.
Easy to say, but who would that somebody be? The mining company? The company they hired to load the ore onto the ships? The Port of San Diego? Federal Magistrate Harry McHugh was assigned the task of bringing all the parties together to work out a solution to the problem.
So I just led the discussion, and pretty soon the solution became obvious. The EPA eliminated ocean dumping, so the quick and easy solution that had been suggested, that to dredge the ore from the bay, to dump it in the ocean to the depths of 20 or 30,000 feet, that wasn't feasible. To transport it along the highways in the contaminated state wasn't feasible. To do anything with it didn't seem to be feasible. So I just suggested, why don't we salvage it? Let's extract the copper. And if nothing else, let's ship it back to the mines from whence it came, in the state it was in when they shipped it from Arizona.
It was a simple idea, a solution that would delight even the most avid environmentalist. Recycle everything, the copper, the shells, the sand, even the water, and put everything back where it belonged. What could be better? But one very big problem remained. Nothing like this had ever been done before, anywhere in the world. The technology for extracting the copper from the bay bottom muck had to be developed and tested. It was at this point that the Port of San Diego stepped forward to assume the leadership responsibility. Port Commissioner Frank Tassin explains the circumstances.
We on the Port Commission were ready to resolve this pollution problem once and for all. As a result, we allocated the necessary funds and assigned our environmental coordinator, Ralph Hicks, the unenviable task of finding a method to separate the copper from the mud right at the site of the spill. As Ralph soon discovered, this was a rather tall order to fill.
Well, near the sides of the wharf, there's a high amount of copper ore, and as you get out from the wharf, it gets diluted pretty rapidly. But we're looking at removing between 30 and 50,000 cubic yards of marine sediments, which is approximately the size of about 1.5 aircraft carriers. So it's a significant amount we have to remove.
To take on this enormous problem, Hicks enlisted the expertise of Greenfield Environmental Services, a private corporation specializing in environmental problems and toxic waste removal. Located here in Carlsbad, a community just north of San Diego, it was possible to forge a remarkable alliance between government and private industry.
Greenfield is a company that has built itself up from the ground up, meaning that we have taken all our technologies and developed them in-house. We have built all our facilities from ground up. We've obtained all our permits from ground up. So I would say that that is one of our main strengths, that we do develop these kind of projects from ground up. Greenfield is a company with its roots in solid waste, and then we branched out from solid waste into hazardous waste. And dealing in the hazardous waste industry with all its changes and all its new regulations, to be successful you have to be innovative. And that is one of the hallmarks of Greenfield, in that we've maintained a complete research and development department to help us break through with new innovations like this sediment project.
George Trezak, Vice President for Greenfield Environmental Services, tells the story of this cooperative effort.
It turned out Ralph Hicks approached us about the possibility of putting together some kind of a technology which could treat these sediments. And we then took some samples from the bay, went to our lab, put together a small bench scale test in which we found that by doing certain separations you could actually minimize the amount of material that had to be extracted.
Laboratory tests proved that the theory could be accomplished. Copper could be separated from the rest of the materials in the bay. Perhaps I can show that to you on a simplified chart of the process. Muck is removed from the bottom of the bay. It's washed, agitated, diluted, and then the material passed through screens which remove sand, rocks, and shells, which are returned back to the bay. The fine sediment that goes through the screen is then passed into an acid tank where nitric acid dissolves the copper oxide. That soluble copper solution then passes into a neutralization tank where strong base is added and the copper oxide precipitates again. That is removed and then shipped back to the mine for recycling. It worked in theory. It worked in the laboratory. Could it be accomplished in the field and on a grand scale? On October of 1993, following a short pilot test period, a full-scale dredging and processing plant was put into operation right on the site of the spill. Hicks describes what we are seeing.
The way we're actually cleaning up the bay is that we start with a dredging program and we bring the contaminated marine sediments to the shore portions of the marine terminal, and we put those dredge materials in roll-off bins. From the roll-off bins, we'll take a backhoe or a front-end loader and put it in a hopper From there, they're taken through a number of conveyor systems, through a number of separation systems, and then ultimately at the end of the process, they're chemically treated to concentrate the copper ore, and that's what produces the commercially valuable graded ore. The value to doing it this way, the cleanup cost, when we first started this project was estimated to be $165 million. Now we're roughly talking between $3 and $4 million to do the whole project. So there is a significant savings there.
Needless to say, the Port Commissioners were delighted with the results, especially Commissioner Van Deventer, representing National City, the site of the operation.
It is personally gratifying to me to see this project solved in such a proper way. I think for the people of National City, we handle this in a way that their concerns were handled. And also, the becoming below the anticipated cost is something that the port was very concerned with.
We're going to be breaking into 4 smaller groups. As you can tell, it's pretty loud around here today. The treatment process is up and running full scale.
2 months into the operation, the Port Commissioners invited local dignitaries, government officials, and media representatives out to the site to witness firsthand the cleanup activities taking place.
The port has shown a tremendous amount of leadership as far as bringing new technology to bear on a significant pollution problem. They deserve to be commended for that. The copper ore, basically they have instituted a mining operation in the bottom of San Diego Bay.
Well, the product, the end product, that is the copper that was removed. I got a little bottle of it right here. The mines were thrilled with this as a product. They can use that either to refine it to pure copper or use it for foundry sand. It has excellent qualities as foundry sand. So out of all this turmoil came a practical, useful, functional solution. Makes everybody happy.
But this by no means is the end. It is just the beginning of a 5-year plan put in place by the Port of San Diego to clean up pollution hotspots in and around the bay. And the implication of what has been done here in San Diego goes far beyond our city limits. The innovative technology developed by Greenfield Environmental in partnership with the Port of San Diego can be put to use by other cities. This pollution problem is not unique to our city. What is unique is the creative way the problem has been solved thanks to the creative and cooperative interaction of government, private industry, and environmental interests, working together to solve the problem for all of us. This is Paul Saltman. Thank you for watching.